How's it going, everybody? So today I'm going to be making a lumber drying rack for the oak wood that I've been milling up. I'm going to be milling up some pine later, but right now I've got oak. I have 4 8-foot 2x6s and 4 12-foot 2x6s, and with 4 cuts, I can make them 2 at a time even, I'm going to be assembling a lumber drying rack. Probably finish it tomorrow, but the video is all going to be mashed together. So yeah, let's get started. So for starters, I have my compound miter saw set up, plugged in. I have little red marks made at the 4-foot mark. These are 8-foot 2x6s. They're going to be cut in half. So for this, you line up the saw on the little red marks, and with this saw I can cut through this entire piece of wood. So I just got to do that again. Got the marks lined up together, but they're not lined up with the saw. So scooch it over and turn it on. That's all the saw is going to be used for. So these are the 12-foot 2x6s, and since I'm milling up 14-foot boards right now, this should be sufficient. So what I'm going to do is go through and measure 24 inches on center. Just make a mark and scooch over, make a mark, and just keep going. Now gotta go through and do the same thing on the other board. So 10, 8, 6, 4, 2. So the red marks are going to be on the outside because they don't have to be hidden. This is a simple lumber drying rack. So scooch this out. grab a board. And when you're nailing something like this, it's generally easier to go through and back it up against something that's not going to move. Everything all nice and lined up. And what I'm going to do is lay out where everything is going to go. And some of these boards aren't pretty. These are seconds that I got. They were rejected for some reason or another, like stuff like that. So I'm going to be putting all of the ugly down, but it's a drying rack. You don't even have to do that. So, since I'm out of 3-inch screws, I'm going to be using 3-inch nails. These ones are for a nail gun, but you just, grab a hold, pry it off, you got a nail. I realized that none of these boards are perfectly parallel. That'll be fixed as soon as all of this gets nailed together and all of the sides get lined up with that side. You go through, put a nail in each of the boards so they don't move around. You're going to want to try to line up the edges. It's a little hard, but it can be done. And once all of the first nails go in, I'm going to go through and put 2 more in each board, and we'll come back. So, the first side is nailed on. It's got 3 nails on it. Now I get to flip it over. So, now it's ugly side up, so I need to put this 2x6 ugly side up. It's not 100% necessary, but I want to do it that way, so that's the way I'm doing it. Now the reason why I went through and put marks on each of the 2-foot marks all the way across the entire thing on both boards is when you do one board and not the other, if you don't go through and measure out your second board, your boards are going to be in or out or cattywampus. So marking it out like that, I have some place to go through and put the center of each 2x6 going all the way down. So I'm going to do that now. One thing about galvanized nails is they like to bend. The other thing about galvanized nails is they do a better job of resisting corrosion, so it's a trade-off between the two. So for this, you still have to go through and make sure it's at least kind of level. Like this board here has a twist in it. I'm not going to be able to do anything about that twist with the tools I have. So I'm leaning on it with my ankles to try to get as much of the twist out as I can. Trying to make it kind of level. I kind of failed on that one, but it's a drying rack. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect. And now I just gotta nail the entire thing off one end to the other, put 3 nails in each side, and that part will be done. So, all of this is nailed off, and you might be thinking to yourself, you've only used 2 of the 12-footers. What are the other 2 for? So, these 2 12-foot 2x6s are going to be runners. It's going to help keep it square a little bit. It's not going to be perfect, but I'm not looking for perfect. I'm looking for good enough. So the runners are going to add a little bit of airflow coming up from the bottom, so the bottom boards dry off evenly, and they're going to help keep it square. And if I level off the dirt, it might even help keep it a little level. So These two are some of my ugliest 2x6s, so I don't really care if they get a little rotten. I'll just go through, replace them later. You know, probably with better wood than redwood. Redwood is kind of a weak wood, just FYI. So, this is now bottom side up, which was done on purpose. That way I can go through and nail these 2x6s along the entire length and a little bit on each of the cross members. So, let's start doing that. But first, I need a square. This is a square. This is a old square. It's fairly well used, but it's still good. So, for this, I'm going to go through, put the square along the outside, and see where it's sitting. Now, as of right now, this is in square. And that was a little bit of dumb luck on getting that way without really trying. But if you don't have a square, what you could do is take a tape measure and measure the diagonals. And this is going to be a little out of shot, but take the tape measure, run it to the other side, and you measure. And then you go from the other corners and you measure again. If the numbers aren't the same, rack it back and forth until they are. But according to the square right now, I'm good. So put the tape measure back. And just lay them out. Get the boards put on like that. Line them up on the edges. Nail it down, and you're done. So I'm going to go through, nail this off, and I'll bring you back tomorrow when I go through and install this. So it's the next morning, and I've got the drying rack. It's all nailed together. Everything's ready to go. I'm going to be trying to move it on the cart all the way back there because it's a little heavy for me to lift. If I had another person here right now, that would probably be the best option, but that's not exactly an option right now. So I'm going to be picking this up, throwing it on the cart, and then hauling it across the road. I'll see you when we get there. Okay, so the drying rack is now where it's supposed to be, and whew, a lot of breath. It's heavier than it looks. Well, it's probably just as heavy as it looks, but yeah, that's where it's gonna be. Now to start getting boards. So this rack is specifically for all of the boards that I've milled, not, lumber that I've bought from the store. This is just a place for all of those boards to dry out, because the ones that I'm cutting through myself are going to need to dry for about a year and a half, and that much time they're going to need someplace dry to be. So inside here, I realize it's not perfectly dry in here. There's some holes in the ceiling and moisture condenses on these cold metal poles, but other than that it should be relatively dry. Now I need to start going and getting the boards I've milled. I haven't milled up a whole bunch yet, but I'm working on it. I needed this done before I could go through and keep milling that oak tree, and I've got a few pine trees that I want to mill out. So yeah, super fun. Well, I'll go start getting some of the oak logs. Okay, so at this current thickness, I could probably fit one more board here before I start having to go through and put stringers. That's a heavy board. It's 2 inches thick, 20 inches wide, and a little bit over 14 feet long. So it's a heavy board. But I think I could fit one more right here. It might overhang just a smidge, but that's not a huge deal. So That's the drying rack. All done, starting to be used. I gotta go through and put stickers between this layer of boards and the next layer of boards. Once that's all going, I can get this stacked, 8 feet tall. 8 feet of boards. Here's a good chunk of boards. They're not all gonna be oak. They're gonna be some pine. I'm hoping to do some more oak because oak is really nice to build, furniture out of. And I like making furniture. So for this area right here, there's a gap. Not even end to end, but I'll fix that later. But this gap here is necessary for airflow. I gotta go through and sweep both of these boards off. Once that's done, I can go through and start with the next layer. Next layer should be a little bit easier to put on because I'm not going to be stepping between the runners or the 4-foot sections. I won't have to walk between there. I can literally just walk straight on the boards. They're 2 inches thick oak. I couldn't do any damage to them if I tried, so aside from having a saw, but you know what I mean. Yeah, I go through, get another one, but I think that's it for this video. Y'all have fun. Bye.